G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds everyone well. Just wanted to do a quick sample edit video today of some images that I photographed in Antarctica. It was a few years ago now, but I had a group of 6 photographers down there who I was teaching and leading. And as you can imagine, it was an incredible place to visit, or number of places to visit and photograph. I shot a lot of images, as we all did, and really it's very difficult to get a bad image down there. It is truly an incredible location and would highly recommend anybody who has the opportunity to go and visit. So today, the edit that I want to demonstrate is not only how I handle the editing of these files, but I'm also going to put them in a bit of a layout and design within Photoshop, just to show what I did with these images as part of a book that I published from that trip. So you can see that there's 8 images here, and with this particular series I actually photographed it on a higher frame rate. I think it's about 6 or 7 frames per second. I can't remember exactly what it was that this camera shoots at. But the purpose that I did that was I wanted to show the body positions of this particular penguin walking across the ice, because as everybody knows, penguins have a really interesting walking style and quite cute, and I wanted to try and show that in photographs if possible, and I ended up using these 8 images as part of a double page spread within my book, and it showed the sort of different body positions, as I mentioned, of this particular penguin as it walked across the ice. So you can see at the moment this is the raw capture straight out of camera, so photographed in RAW. Was photographed on a 5D Mark III with a 100 to 400 Canon L series. Was photographed at ISO 250 at 190 millimeters, f7.1 at 1/800th of a second. Now I shoot everything manually, and this is one of those situations where this is the very definite reason why I shoot manually. I wanted all of these exposures to be exactly the same, because this series of images is only a couple of seconds long. So I didn't want to have to try and manually adjust each image to be matching each other. I wanted to simply make edits to the first image and then apply them to all the other images, so that it was consistent, it was quick and easy, and I didn't have to fuss around trying to match white balance or camera settings or anything like that. So everything is locked and fixed. The only automatic setting that I used was the focus on the lens, but everything else, white balance, shutter speed, ISO and aperture, were all manually set, which is generally how I work for all of my photographic work. Alright, here we go. So as you can see, we've got each image and step that the penguin is making, and cute little things that they are. What I want to do is select that first image and then select all of them. So you can either hit Control or Command A, or simply select the first image, Shift select right through to the end, and you're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just apply a little bit of contrast. I'm going to go to about +25 and drop the highlights a little bit. Just because with snow, and particularly the fur of the penguin, I want to make sure that I retain all of that detail. I don't want to push the file to a point where I lose any detail, because when we move into the printing process, you tend to lose a little bit of detail again, or you can, depending on what process of printing that you're actually using. So yeah, just want to drop those highlights a little bit just to maintain the detail in that fur. If possible at all. I'm then going to add a bit of vibrance and saturation. I use a fairly flat profile within camera, and I just want to bring that punchiness of the color. Even though in this environment there's not a great deal of color, you can see that there is color there. It's obviously a color image, but certainly it's not like a rainforest where you have really, striking greens or a blue sky or anything like that. So at the moment the image looks fairly cool, so I just want to warm that up a little bit. So not a great deal, because if you can see, if I push it too far, I get that kind of browny sort of warm color in the snow. So I just want to make sure that the feeling of coldness is maintained in this image, but the way that it was shot was probably a little bit too cool. So I'm going to sit around 5,750 for the time being. I'm just going to increase the tint a little bit because there was a bit of a cyan sort of tone to it. I'll go up to +8. So that's fine for now. I might revisit those settings as I normally do. I'm going to apply just a little bit of clarity and texture just to, again, bring it back. So this image was shot on the lens that I used for this image, as I said, was the 100 to 400. Reasonably sharp lens. It's not the sharpest lens in Canon's, although the new version is very, very sharp. Not the sharpest lens in Canon's suite, but as you can see, there's still plenty of detail there. And the capacity for this image to be printed quite large is great, so no dramas there at all. What I will do though is just come down to detail, and I'm going to apply a little bit of sharpening. So I'm just going to go to about halfway there, maybe around 75. That looks good. I'm sitting on 100% enlargement at the moment because I want to see every single pixel, which is really important if you're applying sharpening or any noise reduction. You just want to look at every single pixel that's available within that image. Just to make sure that you're applying those settings at a good amount to kind of help the image. Now, as you can see with all of these images, there's a lot of area or surface area of the image where I really don't need to apply sharpening, so I just need to allow for that. So I'm going to apply some masking as well. So if I just hold down my Alt key and slide masking across, you can see when the image is entirely white, that means that the sharpening is being applied to all of the image. I'm just going to slide across until it's only being applied to the areas that I would like it applied to. So you can see it's now around the beak and the eyes and the fur and the feet and those other areas there. So that just means that all of these beautiful soft tones of sky and snow to the left here, sharpening isn't being applied, so that's about where I want it. So if we go back into 100%, you can see that again those beautiful soft tones of the sky in the background are totally fine, but yeah, the areas that we would like sharpening applied to has worked really well. I'm not going to worry about noise reduction. As I highlighted earlier, this image was shot at ISO 250 and there's not a lot of dark areas. It's obviously sitting the histogram a long way to the right, and I'm not going to worry about any noise reduction at all because I just don't think it needs it. Alright, everything else, let's have a look at optics. I'm going to click on remove chromatic aberration. There's not a lot of aberration there, but there was just a little bit, so just to make sure that there's no color fringing anywhere in the image. It's a one click and really effective, I find, on any aberrations there. Geometry we don't need to worry about. Effects and calibration, yep, that's all fine. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to go back to my basic edit tab, and I'm just going to drop the exposure a tiny bit, so maybe just -5, just to bring it back. And I'm going to look at the before and after. You can see that the edits that I've made to this image really are only refinements. There's very little, and I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I shoot everything manually, and I really do make my best efforts to get everything correct in camera, so that the edits that I need to make afterwards are as minimal as possible. Now, that's not always possible in every situation, but in this situation where the lighting was great, it was really soft lighting, it was obviously daytime, I didn't need to push the camera or the image settings much at all. And what that means is I've got a beautifully clean image, but most importantly, with post-production, it means that there's minimal work that I need to do. So, you know, anything that you do in post-production is going to have an effect on the image, and sometimes if you have to push it too far, it can have a negative effect. So the more you can minimize the amount of editing required, the better. Like I said, not always possible, but certainly for this image, my in-camera capture, I feel, was exactly where I wanted it to be. And the resulting edit, there's very little that I needed to do. just going to increase contrast up to +30. And I'm just going to continue cycling through until we get back to our normal view. And I'm really happy with that. I'm just going to have a look at the other images just to make sure I'm happy with all of those. I always have a bit of a chuckle when I have a look at these guys walking. They are very, very cute. That's great. I'm really happy with everything there. And yeah, there's really nothing else I need to do. What I'm going to do from here is just select all of the images, and I'm going to click on open, which will automatically open them in Photoshop for me. And that means that I'm going to be able to finalize. Actually, what I'm going to do first is save all the images out as full resolution TIFFs. And that way I'm going to have full resolution TIFF versions of each image, and then I'll open them in Photoshop for that design layout that I was talking about. All right, let's just swap that over. We don't need to resize, and I'm just going to select where we're going to go with these. I'm going to pop them in my full res TIFF folder that I've already made. Select 300 pixels per inch. Yep, that's all the standard settings that I have. No compression, and we're just going to save those out and we'll be good to go. Alright, so if you're wondering, yes, I absolutely did speed that process up. I would love it if my computer was that quick, but unfortunately it's not. But as I mentioned, here we have all of 8 of those images in Photoshop, and you can see that they're all there in their tabs, ready to go. Now, what I would like to do is to create a panoramic banner or panoramic canvas. Not the canvas that you have stretched as a print canvas, but a canvas as in a workspace. And what I'm going to do is create a big canvas and drag and drop all of those images onto that canvas and then lay them out so that I'm able to then work out my design. I think what I'm going to go for is 2 rows of 4, so 4 across the top, 4 across the bottom, so that we naturally read the images left to right, top to bottom, as we would read text. Alright, so let's have a look at the image size, and we're going to swap that over to inches. Now, I do work in inches with print sizes, image sizes, because I'm a little bit old school and that's just what I'm used to. So it just lets me think, I guess, a little bit about the size that I need to make. So it's 19.2 inches wide. Let's assume for a second that that is 20 inches, just to round it up. And we've got 4 images across the top. So 4 times 20 is 80 inches. So what I'm going to do is start with a canvas that's 100 inches wide. The image is 12.8 inches high, so let's just round it up to 13. And what I'm going to do, so that's 26 for 2. So I'm going to just round that up to 30 inches high. So that's going to be 100 by 30 inches for the blank canvas that we're going to work on. So we just need to come up here to File and New. And over here on the on the right hand side, we'll just select inches, and we're going to go 100 inches by 30 inches. Now that's a massive, massive file. And when we're finished saving this, you'll see that it really is quite massive. So yes, let's work with it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that off the top area there where all the images are sitting. So, and I'm going to grab the first image, and I'm simply going to click and drag that onto our canvas, and you can see that that has dropped in there really nicely. Then I'm going to minimize it. Then I'm going to come along, select the next image, click and drag, and you can see we've got the second image there. All right, and then I'm going to minimize that one. Now we're going to go along to the third image, drag that out, and then click and drag that onto, excellent, onto our canvas, minimize that one. The fourth image, click and drag that one, and we'll drag that along. Excellent. And we're going to minimize that one. Now we've got our second row of images, and we're just going to drop that one down there. Excellent. Oh, let's fix that one up. Dropped it onto the wrong image. There we go. And we're going to drop that down there. Second last image, drop that onto our new canvas. There we go. And third image, drop that onto our new canvas. All right. Now, what I'm going to do from here is just click and drag that up to the top there so that I'm using the full screen. You can see straight away that that's laid out pretty well, and I'm definitely going to go with the 4x2 orientation. All right, so firstly what we need to do is get all of our images sort of sitting a little bit more evenly. You can see that the gap here on the left hand side is very different to the gap on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is just click and drag. If you click onto the guidelines you have on the left and top and drag, it gives you guides. Now if you're not seeing these on the left hand side and the top, we just need to view and rulers. So Control R, you can see there is the shortcut. So again, what I'm going to do is just click and drag a guide, and you'll see it all kind of snap to the center, right? I'm going to do click from the top and again snap to the center. So now we have two lines, two guides that are in the center of the horizontal axis and the vertical axis, and that just allows us to kind of see the page or the canvas broken up into 4 even amounts. So that way when we're laying out our images, it just helps the process a little bit better. Now, just on that snapping to the center, if you find that yours is not doing that, you just need to go to View and Snap to. And you can see that everything is ticked there. So that means that when you drag those guides out in position, you can see it snaps to that center. So that just helps to make that process a little bit easier. Now what I'm going to do is just click and drag, which selects all of our layers. You can see we've got our 8 layers here, which is our 8 images. I'm just going to click and I'm going to pop them smack bang in the center. Now what that means is now that the images are all evenly laid out. Now you can see that the gap on the sides is different to the gap in the top. Now there's a couple of ways you can deal with that. You could crop the side, you could adjust the position of the images, or you could increase the canvas for the top and bottom. What I'm going to do is increase the canvas for the top and bottom because I really like that there's a little bit of room there, and I'm going to add a little bit more to the top and bottom just so that there's a little bit of space. Alright, so what we need to do is go up to Image and Canvas Size, and we've got a height of 9,000 pixels, and you can see we've got a whole bunch of options here. Now I'm not going to go too deeply into canvas size at the moment because I am going to create another video about this, but let's just work with it for now. I'm going to switch over to inches again because that's just how my brain works. If you want to use centimeters or pixels, that's no problem at all, whatever works for you. And I'm going to change 30, which is the height, 34. And let's just have a look. Now I'm also going to click relative. Actually, I'm not going to click relative, sorry. I'm just going to change it to 34. Let's have a look. Excellent. Now that looks better straight away. But I'm going to add a little bit more because I just want to, again, not necessarily have the room on the top and bottom the same as the left and right, but a little bit closer to it. All right, so image and canvas size. I'm going to go back to inches. And I'm going to change that to 36. Much better. All right, so you can see that the extended canvas size, it's just basically made the image a little bit bigger, is now 36 inches high and 100 inches wide. That is a massive, massive print. But what I wanted to do was for the master version of this design was to use the full resolution images of the penguins that I saved earlier. Now what that allows me to do is that I can print this to really any size that I want. So if I want to reduce it, then I can reduce it. And if I want to increase it, then I've got plenty of resolution to work with. It just means that what I'm able to do is have a master version that I can work from. And that really helps the process, I guess, helps make it a little bit quicker. Now, you can either save this as a PSD or as a TIFF. Either would be good because it allows you to have all of those layers intact. And what I'm going to do is go File, Save As. And I'm going to navigate to Full Res TIFF. And I'm going to save it as a PSD because it will allow the image to be a little bit smaller than a TIFF. All right, and file name, I'm going to call it Penguin Walk Master V1. Now I put V1 on the end there because I might decide for whatever reason to make a slightly different version of a master, and that allows me to do it. And I'm going to hit save, and yes, I want to maximize compatibility. This may take a little bit of time. Actually, it's not too bad. Alright, so that's saved. So I now have that master file with all of my layers intact, using full resolution images. That's 100 inches wide. Now that is a massive, massive file. That's over 2 meters wide. So let's just have a look at the image size. 30,000 pixels. Let's have a look at in centimeters. 2.5 meters wide, that is. And it's almost a gig in size. So huge file, but certainly giving us the flexibility to really work with this image and create anything from it. So excellent, that's a great outcome. Now what I want to do is just get rid of those guides. So I'm just going to hit Control and semicolon, and that gets rid of the guides. And you can see now we can see the image nice and clear. And I'm really happy with that result. So, excellent. All right, great outcome. So from here, hopefully this video has been helpful on my edit process for images that were photographed in snow and ice in Antarctica, as well as a little bit about the layout process and how I use Photoshop for design. Now, there's certainly other programs available that are fantastic for design. Obviously InDesign by Adobe, also Lightroom you can use for designing layouts. For me, I'm really comfortable with Photoshop, and I find that it's got some great tools that really help the process. So that's what I use for now. Hope you've enjoyed this video and hopefully you found it helpful. As always, if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments below. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.